Thanksgiving 1930, Chicago Tribune front page, Capone feeds the city. The photograph shows Al Capone in a white apron, serving turkey soup personally, silver ladle in hand. 3,000 people stand in line outside 935 South State Street. The Depression is ravaging Chicago. Unemployment at 25%, breadlines stretching for blocks, families desperate. Capone serves soup, bread rolls, coffee, free, no questions asked. Quality food, not scraps. The public calls him a modern Robin Hood, while the FBI builds a tax evasion case in offices 3 blocks away. That silver ladle flashes in newspaper photos, caught mid-serve, engraved AC, visible to cameras. Behind the photographers, something else is happening. 12 of Capone's top enforcers work as volunteers, watching every face that passes through. FBI surveillance would note 73 known criminals ate at that kitchen over 2 years. None were arrested. Associates later claimed the ladle was a signal system. How Capone held it meant different orders. The kitchen served meals daily through 1932, documented in federal reports. More people passed through that kitchen than through his speakeasies, and every single face was recorded. But the story starts earlier. Late November 1929, Capone stood in an empty storefront at 935 South State Street, holding that silver ladle for the first time. The jeweler had delivered it personally. Custom order, engraved initials, $340, same craftsman who made pieces for Chicago's elite. Capone turned it over in his hands, tested the weight. His empire was pulling in $100 million annually from bootlegging, gambling, prostitution. He owned cops, judges, half the city council. But 7 months after the St. Valentine's Day massacre, public opinion was shifting. The papers called him a monster. Federal agents were building cases. And the Depression was making everyone desperate, including criminals who needed public sympathy. His driver, Frank Rio, watched from the doorway. "Boss, a soup kitchen?" Capone didn't look up. "Everyone's hungry, Frank. Hungry people talk. Grateful people talk more." That ladle would become the most photographed object in Chicago crime history. Thanksgiving morning, 1930, the kitchen opened with calculated fanfare. Capone had invited every newspaper in Chicago. Photographers positioned themselves outside 935 South State Street as the line formed. Unemployed factory workers, laid-off steelmen, families with children, old men with nowhere to go. The menu wasn't garbage. Turkey soup made with real turkey, fresh bread rolls, hot coffee with real cream. Inside, the kitchen gleamed. Industrial stoves, clean serving lines, volunteers in white aprons, and at the center, Capone himself, silver ladle in hand, serving personally. The Tribune photographer captured him mid-pour, soup streaming into a tin bowl, the engraved AC catching the light. "Nobody goes hungry in my city," Capone told reporters. "The government abandoned these people. I won't." 3,000 meals served that first day. The line stretched 3 blocks. By sunset, every paper in Chicago ran the story. Capone feeds what government ignores. Public relations gold. The FBI started surveillance the next morning, but you're about to see why they were already too late. By December 1930, the kitchen was serving 2,200 meals daily. Capone appeared 3 times a week, always at the same hours. Tuesday morning, Thursday lunch, Saturday afternoon. Always carried that silver ladle. Never delegated it. Staff noticed something strange. How he held it changed. Sometimes overhand, gripping near the bowl. Sometimes underhand, fingers near the handle's base. Sometimes he stirred clockwise, sometimes counter. His enforcers, working the serving line as volunteers, watched those grips like they were reading stock tickers. Years later, one testified, "Overhand meant someone important in line. Underhand meant watch the exits. Stirring clockwise meant all clear." The kitchen had become a signaling system, and the ladle was the antenna. Every person served received a numbered ticket stub for tracking donations, they were told. The numbers weren't sequential. They were codes, address markers, date stamps, geographic coordinates across Chicago's South Side. In 1 year, the kitchen served 120,000 meals, more than the Chicago Red Cross fed in the same period. Federal agents photographed it all, documenting charity. They missed what was really being counted: intelligence. January 1931, Treasury Department agent Elliot Ness received an unusual assignment: investigate Capone's soup kitchen. His supervisor was blunt: "We're building a tax case, but how do you prosecute a man the public thinks is a saint?" Ness reviewed the surveillance photos, 47 images over 8 weeks. The silver ladle appeared in every single frame. He noticed something the other agents missed. Capone wasn't watching the food. He was watching faces. Every photo showed his eyes tracking the line, studying people, memorizing features. Ness planted an undercover agent, Robert Walsh, posing as an unemployed carpenter, desperate and grateful. Walsh volunteered for kitchen duty, reported back weekly. His first observation: they're not just feeding people, they're cataloging them. The servers asked questions while ladling soup. "Where do you live? What neighborhood? Seen any police around? Anyone hiring?" Casual conversation, friendly concern. But Walsh noticed the servers writing everything down after shifts: little notebooks, quick entries, handed to Capone's driver at the end of each day. The soup was free, the information wasn't. And by February 1931, Ness realized they were watching an intelligence operation disguised as charity. The kitchen served everyone without discrimination: unemployed workers, hobos, families, criminals. That was the genius of it. Capone's men worked the serving line: Frank Nitti, Jake Guzik, Tony Accardo, memorizing faces, noting conversations. They weren't looking for informants. They were becoming them. One server, according to later testimony, explained the system. "People told us everything: where they'd been, what they'd seen, who was hiring, where cops were setting up. They thought we were helping." By March 1931, FBI surveillance intercepted a coded message: "Ladle points north." 3 hours later, federal agents raided a suspected bootlegging warehouse on the north side. Empty, tipped off. Ness analyzed the timing. The message came 20 minutes after a police officer's brother ate at the kitchen. Coincidence? Ness didn't think so. The soup kitchen was creating gratitude, and gratitude became information. People gave freely what they'd never tell police under oath. The servers weren't charity workers. They were intelligence gatherers. And that silver ladle, flashing in Capone's hand, was directing an entire network of civilian informants who didn't even know they were informing. March 1931, a pattern emerged from FBI surveillance. Known criminals ate at the kitchen regularly. 73 documented visits over 4 months. None were arrested leaving the premises. None were questioned. Federal policy was hands-off. You don't raid a soup kitchen without public backlash. But informants inside Capone's organization revealed something darker. The kitchen was being used to identify undercover cops. Capone's men watched who ate where, who asked what questions, whose stories didn't match their appearance. One informant testified: "Clean hands, new shoes, too many questions, that's a cop. We marked them, followed them, figured out which operations were compromised." The kitchen created perfect cover for counter-surveillance. Every cop trying to blend in as a desperate unemployed worker had to eventually eat, had to interact, had to give something away. The silver ladle became more than a serving tool. It became a recognition signal. How Capone held it told his associates which tables to watch, which faces to remember. When he stirred counterclockwise, someone in line was law enforcement. When he tapped the ladle twice on the pot's rim, photograph that person. Subscribe, because the FBI's next move would prove they understood nothing about what they were fighting. June 1931, federal agents raided the kitchen. Warrants for business records, health inspection, searching for evidence of money laundering. They found nothing criminal: industrial stoves, food supplies, clean facilities, legitimate operation. But they photographed everything and everyone. 340 faces captured that day. Agents cross-referenced with known associates. 23 matches to organized crime. Capone wasn't present during the raid, but his lawyer arrived within 20 minutes. "You're harassing a charitable operation," he told the agents. "Every newspaper in Chicago will hear about this." The silver ladle was seized as evidence. Potential signal device noted in the report. 72 hours later, it was returned. No crime committed. But the raid revealed something to Ness. Capone had anticipated it. The really valuable records, the notebooks, the ticket stubs with coded addresses, the cross-referenced information, were gone before agents arrived. Someone had tipped him off. The raid itself became intelligence for Capone. He learned which agents were assigned to kitchen surveillance, what evidence they were seeking, how the FBI was building its tax case. Every move the government made gave him information. And that silver ladle, back in his hand by the weekend, kept stirring. The genius wasn't feeding people. It was making them part of something they'd never betray. By August 1931, FBI analyst Margaret Cole made a breakthrough. She mapped kitchen attendants against reported crimes in Chicago, overlaying dates, locations, witness statements. The pattern was impossible to ignore. People served on Tuesdays reported crimes on Wednesdays in the same neighborhoods. The kitchen wasn't just gathering information, it was creating an observation network across the entire South Side. Unemployed men walking home from free meals saw everything. Police movements, rival gang activity, which businesses were vulnerable, which neighborhoods had weak security. They reported it unknowingly, casually, gratefully to the friendly volunteers who'd just fed them. Capone knew where police were weak, which neighborhoods were targets, when rivals were moving product. He was reading the city through 2,000 eyes daily. Agent Ness reviewed Cole's analysis and realized the scope. He's not feeding the poor, he's reading the city. The kitchen expanded to a second location in September. West Side, another 1,500 meals daily. The network doubled. Every neighborhood Capone wanted intelligence on got a kitchen. Every kitchen created grateful informants. And that silver ladle, appearing now in surveillance photos at both locations, directed it all. The Depression had given him an army of observers who thought they were just accepting charity. Wait, this gets crazier. August 1931, federal agents analyzing evidence from the June raid discovered something about the ticket stubs. The numbers weren't sequential, they were coded. Ticket 847 corresponded to a Northside address. Ticket 1203 matched a date in March. Each ticket represented a location where information was gathered, cross-referenced with reports from volunteers. The system was revealed. Tickets distributed to kitchen recipients, numbers corresponding to geographic zones across Chicago, information organized by neighborhood. The FBI found a pattern. Major heists correlated with ticket numbers distributed days earlier. Ticket 847 matched the location of a warehouse robbery Capone's gang executed. The silver ladle appeared in an evidence photo next to that ticket stub. The connection was clear. Capone had built a civilian intelligence network under the guise of charity. People came for soup, left with numbered tickets, and unknowingly participated in mapping Chicago's vulnerabilities. One FBI memo stated, "Subject has created information-gathering operation more sophisticated than federal census." But they couldn't prosecute it. Feeding people wasn't illegal. Giving them numbered tickets wasn't illegal. And asking friendly questions over soup, protected by the First Amendment. Ness faced an impossible situation. Capone was committing perfect crime. Perfect because it looked like perfect charity. October 1931, Al Capone stood trial for tax evasion. 22 counts, 11 years of unpaid income taxes. The soup kitchen came up during testimony. Prosecutor dwelled on it. The defendant claims charitable work while evading taxes that fund actual government relief. Defense attorney responded, "Mr. Capone fed 120,000 people the government abandoned. Where were federal breadlines? Where was government compassion?" The jury heard testimony about the kitchen, its operation, its impact, its scale. Witnesses testified to Capone's personal involvement, his genuine interaction with the desperate and poor. But prosecutors couldn't connect it to criminal activity. No drugs moved through the kitchen. No money laundered. No illegal operations. Just soup. The jury convicted Capone on 5 counts. Tax evasion, not charity fraud. Judge Wilkerson sentenced him to 11 years federal prison, the harshest sentence ever given for tax evasion at the time. Capone showed no emotion, but as marshals led him away, he said one thing to reporters: "I fed more people than the government." The kitchen stayed open. Someone else took over operations, name never officially recorded. The silver ladle kept serving. The network kept gathering. The intelligence kept flowing. Capone was gone, but his system wasn't. The kitchen operated through 1935, even with Capone in Alcatraz. Different operators ran it. Some claimed it was Jake Gusick. Others said Frank Nitti managed from behind legitimate businesses. The silver ladle was used by whoever was in charge, becoming a symbol of continuity. FBI tracked 73 known criminals through kitchen attendance records over 4 years. But prosecution remained impossible. Men eating soup wasn't evidence of conspiracy. The numbered ticket system continued until 1934, when federal pressure made it too risky. Final kitchen closure came December 1935. The Depression was easing slightly, public support had waned, and Capone's organization was too fragmented to maintain the operation. FBI seized records during the final closure, found little of value. The really damaging documents had been burned months earlier. The silver ladle disappeared during the closure, never logged into evidence, never seen again. Some claimed Capone's family kept it. Others said it was melted down, the silver worth more than the symbol. But FBI agents who'd tracked it for 4 years noticed something in declassified photos years later. That ladle appeared in 89 crime scene photographs between 1930 and 1935, present at murders, raids, meetings, and never once provided grounds for prosecution. January 1939, Al Capone was released from Alcatraz, broken by advanced syphilis. His mind was deteriorating, his empire dissolved, his legend transformed into cautionary tale. But during interviews in his final years, he mentioned the soup kitchen with obvious pride. "I fed this city when no one else would," he told reporters. "Government didn't care if people starved. I cared." Historians documented the kitchen's impact. Over 400,000 meals served during its operation, more than most government relief programs in the same period. Chicago officials had praised it publicly. Mayor Thompson called it exemplary private charity. But FBI files, gradually declassified through the 1970s, revealed the darker purpose. Intelligence operation disguised as humanitarian relief. The soup created gratitude. Gratitude created information. Information created power. Some kitchen recipients later became Capone informants. Loyalty purchased with soup and bread during desperate times. The equation was simple. Feed someone when they're starving, they remember. They trust. They talk. They help. Capone understood what the government didn't. Charity could be transactional. Kindness could be strategic. And a silver ladle could direct an intelligence network more effective than anything federal agents could build. January 1939, Al Capone was released from Alcatraz, broken by advanced syphilis. His mind was deteriorating, his empire dissolved, his legend transformed into cautionary tale. The man who once controlled Chicago could barely control his own thoughts, but during interviews in his final years at his Miami mansion, he mentioned the soup kitchen with obvious pride. "I fed this city when no one else would," he told reporters from the Miami Herald. "Government didn't care if people starved. I cared." The statement appeared in newspapers across the country. Some printed it as tragedy, others as delusion. Historians documented the kitchen's impact over the following decades. Over 400,000 meals served during its operation between 1930 and 1935, more than most government relief programs in Chicago during the same period. The numbers were verified through Chicago Tribune archives, health department records, and federal reports. Chicago officials had praised it publicly at the time. Mayor Thompson called it exemplary private charity, a quote that would haunt his political legacy. Religious leaders defended it. Social workers collaborated with it. The kitchen had been woven into Chicago's Depression-era identity as a rare bright spot during dark times. But FBI files, gradually declassified through the 1970s and 1980s, revealed the darker purpose: intelligence operation disguised as humanitarian relief. The soup created gratitude. Gratitude created information. Information created power. Some kitchen recipients later became Capone informants. Loyalty purchased with soup and bread during desperate times, debts paid in whispered conversations and neighborhood observations. The equation was simple and brutal in its efficiency. Feed someone when they're starving, they remember. They trust. They talk. They help. They owe. Capone understood what the government didn't. Charity could be transactional. Kindness could be strategic. Generosity could be currency. And a silver ladle could direct an intelligence network more effective than anything federal agents could build with badges and warrants. January 25, 1947, Al Capone died in his Miami mansion, age 48. Syphilis and pneumonia claimed him, the diseases eating through his brain for years. The Scarface legend ended not with gunfire, but with medical deterioration. The body that had survived assassination attempts and gang wars finally betraying him from within. His estate auction included personal items, furniture, clothing, jewelry, business records, photographs. The silver soup ladle was never listed, never found, never recovered. Family members claimed they'd never seen it. Associates said it disappeared during the 1935 kitchen closure. Some believed it was melted down, the silver worth more than the symbol during Depression's scarce times. Others thought Capone had it buried with secrets he'd never tell. The mystery added to the legend. Chicago historians spent decades debating the soup kitchen's true purpose. Academic papers were written, documentaries produced. Some called it genuine charity corrupted by circumstances and opportunity. Others saw it as calculated criminal strategy from the beginning, pure manipulation dressed in humanitarian clothing. FBI files declassified in the 1970s settled nothing. They showed 89 photographs of that ladle at crime scenes, meetings, operations spanning 5 years, present at murders, visible during raids, held during strategic meetings. But the files never explained why it worked so perfectly, why the system was so resilient, why prosecutors could never touch it. The mystery remains unanswered. Was it signal device, symbolic prop, or just a ladle? Maybe all three. Maybe none. Maybe the question itself misses the point. The truth is this. Al Capone fed more people than the Red Cross during Chicago's worst years. And he gathered more intelligence than the FBI during their best investigation. He turned charity into weapon and weapon into charity until no one could tell the difference. Sometimes the best disguise is generosity. Nobody questions the hand that feeds them, and everyone remembers who saved them when they were starving. That's not crime. That's genius. And the silver ladle? Still missing. Still legendary. Still feeding the myth 80 years later.